And now we get to what is perhaps regarded as the magnum opus of the Devil May Cry series from fans of the series, which is to say, we're going to talk about Devil May Cry 3. Now, fans of the Devil May Cry series do seem to love Devil May Cry 3, with them saying it is simply the best in the series, and I do find that Devil May Cry 3 Renown is pretty interesting. I find it interesting because while I probably say that Devil May Cry 1 is probably the most influential game in the series, I would say Devil May Cry 3 is the most well-known game in the series, with most people thinking of Devil May Cry 3 whenever they think of the Devil May Cry series, from its fast-paced, frantic, and exhilarating combat to Devil May Cry's over-the-top and cheesy stories. People do seem to think of Devil May Cry 3 whenever they think of the Devil May Cry series. Well, from what I've seen. But is Devil May Cry 3 renown well earned? Well, that's what we're going to discuss. Hello, I am Peter47890 Sirus, and welcome to part 3 of my Devil May Cry reviews, a series of videos where I be looking into the various games in the Devil May Cry franchise and see how they hold up as action games. And for today, we will be looking into the famed Devil May Cry 3. So without further ado, let's rock.
So, this is what they call a heartwarming family reunion, eh? You got that right.
Visually, I say Devil May Cry looks pretty decent in the conversion from the PS2 to PS3. The character models looks pretty good, with most of the main cast having a pretty cool character design to them, and the enemy design are good to look at as well. The environments are interesting to look at, with the Gotham-like environments we see in the Tower of Temenegru. Though, personally speaking, I probably do prefer the visual design of the first game in terms of its artistic design, but Devil May Cry 3 still looks pretty decent in that department. But I think the aspect of the visuals that works best in this game is probably the cinematography we see in the cutscenes. They're simply awesome to watch. The fight scenes in this game is probably one of the best fighting cinematography I've seen in a video game, and they're just really cool and stylish to watch, and keeps you engaged to the screen as you see them unfold before your very eyes. The in-game animations are also really smooth as well, which is great in an action game and pretty paramount. Overall, the visuals works very well and can be a spectacle to see at times, especially with the cinematography. The sound design is equally as strong, with the musical score ranging from heart-pounding metal tracks during battle, which really does keep you pumped up whenever you hear them, to sweeping orchestral scores that are both pleasant to hear as well as fitting the various scenes as used them. The voice acting is also good, with the voice fitting the characters and the delivery is spot on, especially with Ruben Ladon's Dante, with him being able to portray Dante's cocky and badass persona very well as nailing the dramatic scene in the game, to the point where it's heartfelt rather than just cheesy. And the voice acting overall is just solid, which is a big improvement from 1 and 2, where the voice acting in those games have aged pretty badly. Story-wise, the game is basically a prequel to the first game, with this game starting us off as playing as a young and brash Dante, who's basically setting up his shop at the start of the game, until Virgil, Dante's twin brother, and mysterious tower suddenly appears out of nowhere. And the story from there is basically Dante heading up the Tower of Temenegru and basically trying to stop Virgil from fulfilling his plans. The story overall, I have to say, is a fun ride to go through. It's over the top, but that over the top quality that the story has does make it entertaining to watch, especially with how ridiculously awesome some of the various stunts you see the character do in the game in terms of the cutscenes. and the characters really do keep you engaged to the story, with the characters being generally pretty cool characters, from the cocky and badass Dante, who always have a witty remark to make about any situation, to the calm and collected but power-hungry Virgil. The characters are simple but are extremely likable and very entertaining to watch due to just how cool the characters are in the game. And to the game's credit, the character's coolness isn't all there is to the character, as the drama done between them is done pretty well, with Dante having some good character development with his relationship between both Lady and his brother Virgil. And the sibling rivalry between Virgil and Dante is also executed extremely well. And as a result, I did got invested in the story of Devil May Cry 3. It's not the best story I've seen in an action game, but it was entertaining to go through and did keep my interest, and I did generally like the characters of the game. Overall, the presentation of the game is done rather well, though I will say that like Devil May Cry 1, the menu in this game also haven't really been updated to HD format, and the movie scenes suffer from that as well, so be wary of that. Okay, now let's get to the aspect of Devil May Cry 3 that gets praised by so much by fans and gaming critics alike, which is to say, the gameplay. Now, like I did with my other Devil May Cry reviews, I'll first be discussing the structure of the game, the combat, and other important factors such as the difficulty settings, the difference between them, the extras that got added in the special edition of Devil May Cry 3, since the HD collection version of Devil May Cry 3 is the special edition. So anyway, let's start with the structure. Now structurally, Devil May Cry 3 follows the same pattern as the first two games, with the game playing like a fast-paced hack-and-slash game, with you progressing the game by going through various missions that require you to go through linear levels, fighting various demons that are in Dante's way, doing some light adventuring aspect in order to progress the levels, and you also will be fighting the occasional boss that appears at the end of the level. And when you complete a stage, you'll be ranked on how well you did on that level, and the higher ranking you get, the more red orbs you get. And red orbs is basically the currency in the game, which you get not only from mission rankings, but also by defeating the various enemies that Dante will be facing, as well as getting red orbs that are littered through the level themselves. Structurally, Devil May Cry 3 is pretty strong in this department. The level design is pretty good, with the levels themselves being spacious enough to accommodate the fast-paced hack-and-slash gameplay that the game entails, but it's never too big that it feels drawn out. And the interval between battle and light adventuring aspects is done in a way that you are consistently getting into fights in a game that will keep you engaged, but given enough downtime in the light adventuring aspect that you don't feel burnout from the consistent action. The puzzles themselves in the light adventuring aspects are pretty simple, but they will have to be in order to fit the fast-paced nature of Devil May Cry. And I do think the balance between battle and the light adventuring aspect in most of the levels in Devil May Cry 3 is done rather well. Well, most of the levels. I do think Mission 15 do suffer from a lot of backtracking and wandering around, and Mission 14 is kinda weird in how you complete the level, with the main goal of the level is basically going up the tower, but in order to go up you have to go at the bottom of the tower, where Dante will find Lady's motorcycle about to fall over, and he basically uses it to get up. I mean, it's a cool action scene, but in terms of how you progress the game, it's kinda weird, in my personal opinion. But for the most part, the levels in Devil May Cry 3 is done rather well. The only cons I do think to the level design is some of the platforming, which can be a pain to go through. But the platforming itself is pretty scarce, so that complaint is a minor one. Okay, now let's get into the meat of the game itself, which is to say, the combat. Combat-wise, Devil May Cry 3 plays out like a fast-paced hack-and-slash game, with Dante having a peripheral of weapons that he's able to use, from his trusty and now iconic Rebellion to shall we say, more unconventional weapons? And each of the weapons he got their own variety of moves that Dante is able to utilize in order to not only decimate his foes, but do it in style. At the same time, he will be trying to dodge the onslaught of attacks that comes from the various enemies via jumping, rolling, and using the dash function that comes from the trickster style that you can equip. And I'll explain the trickster style later on when I'm discussing the style system. Along with his melee weapons, Dante also got a variety of firearms that he got in his disposal, which each got their own unique functions, but do know that Dante will only be able to equip 2 melee weapons and 2 firearms during mission, and you basically have to choose what weapon you have to bring with you in the level themselves in the customization screen during the start, or even when you find a lion statue during the level. Dante will also have access to his devil trigger later on in the game, which will allow Dante to go to a super state, in a sense, where he will be able to hit harder, be faster, be able to take more hits, and be able to regen his health slowly. Well, if he has enough devil trigger meter, basically. Dante also have the ability to instantaneously switch between the 2 melee weapons and 2 firearms that he's able to bring into the level, which will allow him to use a variety of moves that each weapon bring in his disposal and be able to use those moves on the fly. Devil May Cry 3 also got into the lock-on system, where you're able to target specific targets, where it is pretty easy to target specific enemies and groups. Albeit it's not perfect, but it works most of the time. Now I discuss the style system that is in the game. The style system is essentially the various fighting styles that Dante is able to utilize in the game, with there being 4 different styles you are able to equip in the game at the start, which are namely Trickster, Swordmaster, Gunslinger, and Royal Guard, with there being an additional 2 styles being unlocked later on in the game. And depending on what styles you got equipped, you will be able to use a variety of moves that are exclusive to that style, whether that be getting additional offensive capabilities, such as unlocking additional moves for your melee weapons if you got Swordmaster equipped, to being able to unlock defensive capabilities with you being able to dash and air dash with Trickster equipped, or even guard with the Royal Guard style. And there's even another style that will allow you to slow down time. And the more you use the style, the better moves you are able to get for that style, since the various styles that Dante has under his disposal are upgradable. Well, the first 4 at least. But do note that you are only able to equip one particular style for a level. And lastly, the style meter is still in Devil May Cry 3, though modified a bit, where you have to not only be consistently be on the offensive in order to raise the style ranking, but also be varying up the moves you'll be using against the various foes that Dante will be facing, with the reward for having a high style ranking, and the style meter will be getting more red orbs when you defeat enemies with a high style ranking. And while we are on the subject of red orbs function the same as other games, with you collecting red orbs in order to buy moves for each of your melee weapons, items, which ranges from healing you to increasing your stats, and even upgrading the firepower or speed of your firearms. Overall, the combat is amazing. The combat is fast-paced, thrilling, with controls being really tight, with you being able to perform the variety of moves that Dante got under his disposal with the various weapons he has with ease and precision. The targeting system itself is also a mostly well done system, with you being able to freely target specific enemy in a group when the situation calls for it. Albeit it's not perfect 100% of the time, and the targeting system can be a bit iffy if the enemy you want to target is like right next to another target, but it works most of the time, I feel. Anyway, moving on. The various weapons that Dante is able to use in the game are pretty satisfying to use, with each of the weapons having a good amount of moves available to them, and each weapon type that Dante uses does have a different play style to them, which does make them feel pretty different from each other, with most of the moves in each moveset being useful to use for the various situations you find yourself in battle, which makes fighting with each weapon to be very satisfying. and add in the instantaneous weapon switching, and you got an awesome array of moves at your disposal to play around with the game giving you a lot of freedom and variety at how you combo in the game, which is simply awesome. And it is really fun to creatively use the various moves that you have at your disposal in Devil May Cry 3 and decimate your foes with them, and with style, I might add. And it is certainly satisfying to see the game rewarding you for experimenting with the various moves you do in the game, with the style meter rewarding you more red orbs as you get the ranking up for both mixing up your moves when you do your combos, as well as keeping a good offensive while also trying to avoid getting hit, which, like the first Devil May Cry, fits the fast-paced nature of Devil May Cry in general. The red orb progression system is also good, with there being an even greater feeling of progression in Devil May Cry 3 than the past two Devil May Cry games, with there being more to unlock via moves, item upgrades, etc. And you really do feel you get stronger when you purchase these various upgrades in the shop system. The style system is also done excellently, with each style bringing something distinctive to combat and feels useful and fun to utilize, with the specific exclusive abilities that Dante has access to when selecting certain styles. And the styles themselves also feel very unique from each other, which can add to the replay value, as going through the game in one style and switching to another can change the game up enough that your new playthrough with a different style can feel fresh. The style also got a nice progression curve with the abilities you learn as you level up the various styles. Well, for the first four styles, which are basically Trickster, Swordmaster, Gunslinger, and Royal Guard. And Dante's Devil Trigger does feel satisfying to use, as you do feel that he does feel powered up when you're using it. The enemy variety in the game is also pretty good, with there being a decent amount of different enemy types in the game, with you having to think up of certain tactics to deal with quite a few of them, especially on the higher difficulties, and they're generally pretty fun to fight. Well, most of them. God damn you, Enigma! The bosses, though, are pretty fun, challenging, and awesome to fight, with each boss feeling unique from each other and requiring you to think up of the different strategies to deal with them. The difficulty is also pretty good and challenging in Devil May Cry 3, albeit the HD collection did revert the default difficulty to what it was in the Japan release, since in the original North America release, our normal difficulty was Japan's hard. And it does make the HD version of Devil May Cry 3 easier than the North American version, well, at least when you're initially playing it, since what they initially did in the special edition was basically rearrange the difficulty settings, but the normal difficulty can still be quite tough at times, especially with the Cerberus and Rudra and Agni fight, which I think are two of the tougher bosses in the game, especially more so in the initial playthrough, since they are the first two bosses you fight in the game. So yeah, there are a lot of aspects in Devil May Cry 3 gameplay that are really appealing, but there are some aspects of its gameplay that are less than ideal. The main problem I have with the game is probably the camera, with there being some instances in the game where you won't be able to see the various attacks that comes from the various enemies you'll be fighting. Albeit the camera is significantly better than the first Devil May Cry, and much better than the shit camera system from Devil May Cry 2, but even though it is better, the camera in Devil May Cry 3 can still be problematic at times, especially against the fight against Rudra and Agni. Another issue is a technical one, namely the freezing issue that can happen when you get to a movie clip or when you sometimes even go to the customization screen. Now this problem seems to be prevalent on the PSN version of the game, which is the version I bought, so people who buy this version might not even run into it at all, but I still do feel it is relevant to bring up, especially since Devil May Cry 1 and 2 didn't have this problem in the HD collection, so I find it silly that Devil May Cry have this problem. Even more so since Devil May Cry 3 is arguably the best game in the collection, so you would think that Capcom would try to make this game run perfectly, but alas, it does not, at least on the PSN version. Now, the freezing issue doesn't happen all that often, as in my 30 hours of playing through the game on normal, hard, very hard, and playing a bit of Dante Must Die mode, it happens about 5 times. So the issue isn't all that prevalent, but it is still really annoying to get the game to freeze on you whenever you progress the game enough to see a movie clip in the game, or just going to the customization screen during the mission to buy some upgrades. Yeah. But even with the issues, Devil May Cry 3 combat is just so much fun to play. There's just so much variety to how you can tackle combat, with the vast amount of options that the game gives you, from the various weapons that Dante is able to use, with each of the weapons that Dante uses having a great moveset to play around with, especially with the instantaneous weapon switching that allows you to freely mix up how you can combo between the 2 melee weapons and 2 firearms you can equip during the levels, to the style system changing up how you can go to combat, with each style exclusive abilities feeling both very useful to utilize and unique from each other, and etc. Now, before I end the gameplay portion of this review, let's just briefly go through the difficulty levels in Devil May Cry 3, as well as the addition that the special edition brought to the original. And while I'm talking about it, the difficulty levels that I will be talking about mostly does pertain to the special edition as well. Anyway, there's normal, easy, that gets unlocked if you get killed a couple of times in the starting missions, hard, very hard, and Dante Must Die. Now, I think easy, normal, and hard does got the same enemy placement, albeit the enemy does hit harder as you up the difficulty, with very hard not only upping the damage output that enemy can dish out, but also changing the enemy placement as well. Dante Must Die is a whole another beast, with it not only upping the damage output too, but also giving the enemy a chance to go into double trigger mode if you defeat a number of enemies during a fight, or if enough time passes, which will allow them to hit harder, not being able to be stunned as easy as before, and basically be able to withstand more damage basically. Now, the last thing I'll discuss is probably the major addition that the special edition brought to the table, which is being able to play as freaking Virgil, and it is amazing. He's just really a lot of fun to play, albeit he's pretty different from Dante, but different in a good way. So yeah, Virgil is a lot of fun to play as, albeit the Virgil levels can feel a tad lazy, because when you get down to it, when you do play as Virgil in Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition, you're basically just playing Dante stages from start to finish. So yeah. Overall, I can certainly see why Devil May Cry 3 is seen as the magnum opus of the Devil May Cry series. There is a lot of stuff that the game gets right, from its over-the-top and entertaining story that's filled with cool and likable characters, to its exhilarating, tight and stylish combat that provides so much variety in how you can tackle the game that fans of fast-paced hack-and-slash game can really dig their claws into Devil May Cry 3 and simply love the depth they find in Devil May Cry 3 gameplay, with the game also being filled with bosses that are a blast to fight against. There are some elements in the game that does make the game a bit annoying at times, like the camera, and I do think the original does a few stuff better than 3, like the atmosphere that the original exudes and the various enemy variety. But 3 just do a lot of stuff right that I probably do agree that 3 is probably the best game out of the HD collection. I'd probably be remiss to say that 3 is the best game of the series since I haven't played all of them yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was, since the bar has been raised pretty high. And as of right now, in terms of how it ranks among the action games I played, I'd probably say Devil May Cry 3 is on par with the original Ninja Gaiden that was released on the original Xbox. Well, the first Ninja Gaiden game for the modern Ninja Gaiden series. And that's saying something, since the original Ninja Gaiden game on Xbox is probably my favorite action game that I've played thus far. So yeah, long story short, I simply love my time with Devil May Cry 3.
I'm absolutely crazy about it!
Phew, talk about power gaming. I just went through 3 Devil May Cry games in a row, and even played through Dante Must Die mode in the original Devil May Cry, and played through very hard mode in Devil May Cry 3, and also played a bit of Dante Must Die mode in that game as well. But you know what? Since I'm already this far in the series, I might as well just review the rest of the game of the franchise. So ladies and gentlemen, join me next time in my channel when I'm going to review Devil May Cry 4.